A Quiet Place, released in year the 2018, presents a very post-apocalyptic horror thriller film which is set in a world where sound just equals death, and the story follows the Abbott family as they navigate through a very desolate and a very eerie type of landscape that we see while evading very blind and monstrous creature and that hunt using their hypersensitive hearing actually. So this is kind of a subplot to the movie where you get the whole idea of a movie, that in what direction the movie is heading and overall the background and setting of the movie. We see that every step, every breath and movement must be calculated, so because even the slightest of the noise could just spell doom and it could cause just havoc among the people. The film opens in the day 89 of the apocalypse, and we see the Abbott family here. That is the parents Lee, played by John Krasinski, and Evelyn, that is played by Emily Blunt, along with their three children, that is Reagan, Marcus and Bowie. And we see that they are scavenging for supplies because it is in a very abandoned store, and the eerie silence and the kind of very isolated nature of this film, we can see that it is overwhelming to us, setting the tone for the world that they now inhabit. Bio being the youngest, and she finds a toy space shuttle. Regan, his old sister, that is lovingly hands it to him, but Lee swiftly removes the batteries, fearing the noise it could just make and could trigger the unknown potential hunting, or the unknown thing that could just hunt them due to this sound actually. And however, as they silently exit the store, Bew secretly retrieves the batteries. So tragedy strikes on their way home. We see that Bew is just trailing behind. She tries to activate the toy and causing its light and sound to pierce through the silence. So time freezes before Lee can just reach him. A monstrous creature that is just astonishing in size, that is very fast and grotesque and equipped with the ultra-sensitive hearing, emerges from the woods, and it just snatches Bew in a very instant moment of time. And we see that family is just left in silent horror, and that is just unable to scream or grieve, and even we as the audience are felt kind of very awkward in this situation, because all these things are done relevant to the sound, because this movie is all about sound and being silent at all the time. More than a year later exactly, we see that after 472 days, the Abbott family has just adapted to this silent nightmare or this silent nature of this thing. They reside in a very secluded farmhouse, communicating through sign language. Sand path just cushion their footstep, and dinner is eaten without just clinking utensils and all other type of food items. And even the Monopoly is played with filled game pieces. Evelyn is now heavily pregnant, adding a new layer of dread and a new layer of uneasiness now, because it could create a lot of problem. How will they keep a newborn quiet in this world? That is the main question from them, because it is their primary duty to keep him quiet. And meanwhile, we see that Lee tirelessly works on a way to restore Regan's hearing aid, but his numerous attempts just fails one by one, and he is not able to just repair it. Regan, who feels distant from her father, believes that he blames her for Bew's death. So this is kind of very unfortunate for them. Lee takes Marcus on a fishing trip to teach him how to find food and survive, and Marcus is just terrified of leaving the relative safety of home and reassist, but his father reassures him. At the river, Marcus is surprised when Lee speaks, and louder than usual, so it is kind of unnerving and out of context for them. And Lee explains the running water mask sound, making it one of the very few places where they can speak freely. Meanwhile, Regan is just feeling rejected, and she disobeys her father's order, that is her father's order, and visit Bew's memorial site. And we see this is unexpected, and she is struggling with the guilt, believing that she was responsible for her little brother's death, and she is blaming herself, and she is carrying the guilt and sorrow of that thing with her, just taking blame on herself. Back at the farmhouse, we see that Evelyn goes into early labor, and as she moves through the house, she accidentally steps onto a exposed nail, and stifling her scream in a very unbearable pain and very worse pain, And even worse, the things get the noise attracts the creature, and as she struggles to suppress her cries, she flips a switch and activating the red emergency lights around the property and a signal to Lee that something is wrong going on there. So as the night falls, Evelyn just finds fights around the labor pains while a creature just sprawls nearby. That is just awaiting to be the that is she's just to be awaiting to be to the next victim of this so-called creature. She enters the bathtub, clamping her mouth shut as contraction intensifies. Just as the creature enters the house, Lee and Marcus just returns and immediately noticing the red lights. Understanding the danger, Lee sends Marcus to set off fireworks. A diversion to mask Evelyn's scream there, and the plan actually works, allowing Evelyn to give birth safely. Lee finds Evelyn exhausted but alive and waddling their newborn. She warns him that who are we if we can't just protect them? That is their basic duty. Meanwhile, Regan just returns home but sees Marcus trapped in a grain silo after he and Lee are just ambushed by the creature. And Regan just rushes to save him, but they both sink into the shifting grains. The creature hears their struggle and descends upon them. And in a very desperate moment, we see that Regan's hearing aid just emits high frequency feedback of the high frequency vibrations, and that just causing the monster to recoil in pain before just fleeing away. Realizing realizing the device affects the creature, Regan is both terrified and intrigued. Lee, searching for his children, now finds them as just monster returns. He hides them in a truck but gets gravely wounded in this process as the creature's closes in. Lee, knowing he has no other option, signs to Regan that I love you and I have always loved you with one final act of sacrifice. He screams, drawing the creature towards himself and away from his children. It brutally kills him, but his sacrifice just gives them time to escape. And if we see the actually final state or the final climax of the movie or the final interpretation of the movie, that Regan and Marcus just drives the truck back home to the devastated Evelyn, and their reunion is cut short as the creature follows them into their basement. And in a very desperate moment, we see that Regan realizes the truth that her hearing aid high frequency feedback is just agony for the creature and creating a lot of problem for the creature. So she amplifies the signal through the radio, causing the monster to convulse, exposing its vulnerable inner head. And Evelyn, seizing the opportunity, just fires a shotgun, killing it just instantly at the point of time. And actually, this is very satisfying moment. As more creatures are heard approaching outside, Regan and Evelyn just exchange a very knowingly look. Now armed with the knowledge and a weapon, Evelyn just cocks the shotgun ready for the fight ahead, and the screen just cuts to black, and this is how the film ends. So the film ends with a very kind of hinting that there may be a sequel part 2 of this movie. And today, when I am recording this, I mean the explanation part, after nearly 6 years, so the part has come. I think even 2 or 3 parts of this movies are available. So if we talk about the themes and ending explanation and all those things, we see the power of silence and communication in the movie is just strong and very subtle, explaining its background and the heavy realization of the silence in this movie, because the film masterfully uses sound or the lack thereof to create a very intense atmosphere. So the Abbott's family ability to just communicate through sign language, I think it is the greatest advantage, turning a very supposed disability into the strength they should have. Second, we see that sacrifice and about love thing, that Lee's ultimate sacrifice is the emotional climax of the film, and he chooses to die not to just protect his children but to show that Regan in the final moment that how much he loves her. So that is what is the demand of the character. Each character finds a way to survive. Evelyn as a mother protecting her child, and Regan using her supposed weakness to turn the tide, and the Marcus just overcoming his fears to aid his family. And the ending leaves us on a very empowering note. Instead of despairing, that Evelyn and Regan just chooses to fight back, and signaling the humanity's ability to adapt may be the key to survival again. And I think the movie is just quite more than just a horror movie or kind of thriller movie you would expect. And it's a very deeply emotional story about family sacrifice and the resilience. and with very kind of a minimal dialogue and best and I think the greatest interpretation of the sound in the movie, and but maximum impact. It just proves that sometimes silence speaks louder than word. And I think the film wastes no time pulling viewers into its world. That from the tragic opening scene to the heart-pounding climax, the tension never lets up. The pacing is very tight with no unnecessary subplot or filter movements. Every scene just serves as a purpose, keeping you on edge until the very last shot. And John Krasinski not only directs but also delivers a very strong performance as the main lead or the main protagonist of the movie, the Lee character, and a desperate father to just protect his family. And Emily Blunt is phenomenal as Evelyn actually, especially in a very nerve-wracking scene where she must remain silent while giving birth, and one of the film's most intense moment. However, the real standout is the character of the Regan, and as deaf actress playing a deaf character, she brings authenticity and accuracy the role that is needed and the depth of the role. Her struggles with guilt and her complicated relationship with her father just makes her one of the most compelling characters in the movie actually. It's all about the movie, and subscribe for more.